Hello, my name is Stefan. Welcome to today's lecture on developing a remote access Trojan for educational purposes. In this lecture series, we will explore the fundamentals of creating a rat using Python, and today we will focus on the server-side implementation of it. So, a remote access Trojan is a powerful tool that allows authorized or unauthorized users to remotely access and control computers over a network. It can be used for various purposes, such as penetration testing, network administration, and remote troubleshooting. So, however, it's important to approach its development and usage responsibly and ethically. And in this lecture, we will dive into the server-side code of our remote access Trojan, and we will establish a network connection between a server and client, allowing us to send commands from the server to the client machine and receive the outputs back to the server's terminal. We will then walk through each line of code, discussing its purpose and functionality. So by the end of this lecture, you will have a solid understanding of the server-side implementation of our remote access Trojan and how it enables remote command execution. In this lecture, we will continue our journey by developing the client-side code, completing our remote access Trojan implementations. So remember, the purpose of this lecture series is educational, emphasizing responsible and ethical use of such tools, and it's essential to respect the legal boundaries and obtain proper authorization before conducting any activities related to hacking, penetration testing, or network security. So let's get started with our exploration of remote access Trojan development, starting with the server-side code here. And together we will learn how to create a functional remote access Trojan that can execute commands remotely and receive outputs in the server's terminal. So feel free to customize this code here. And for this lecture purposes here, we will delete this code. Actually, we will write the same code to the previous lectures for the messaging application, but it will, for some here, it might be watching from all over the lectures again for this section, and that's why we're gonna delete the codes here and we will write them again for educational purposes here. So we will explain this again and more depth here. And now what we're gonna do is we will write firstly import the socket here, import socket. So here we will also if name again, if name here, do equal to signs, and again main here, and after that we will create a socket object for the server. In order to do that, so we will again use the same variable hacker server socket here, and socket dot socket. That's it. Again socket.af init for TCP IP version 4, and also we will also use the socket sock stream in order to use the TCP protocol. And after that we will need to define the IP address and port to listen on. We will use IP to listen. It's gonna be 0.0.0.0. We will listen all available network interfaces, and the port is gonna be again the same port 8788 here. So port here, port 8788. So here we will need to bind the socket to the IP address and port. So we will create a new tuple, my socket address here, and we will create the first we will pass the IP to listen and then port here, and after that we will also bind this variable tuple here with this bind method, my socket address, and after that we will need to listen for incoming client connections. So here we will set the maximum client connections or client queue for 5 listen here, and after that we will print to the user that we are listening to all incoming client connections. So listening to or listening for all incoming client connections here, and that's it. And after that we will need to, if there's a client connection, we need to accept the client connection when it arrives. So in order to do that we will use the client socket, and here client address here, and we will equal to hacker server dot accept, and after that we will print the client IP address and port, and we will know that what the client and port we are working on. So connected to, or actual new connection, and here we will write the client address. Actually it was a it was client address and client it was a client address and client socket. Actually it's right, only client address only, so we know the port already, or we can also use this port. That's it. So here we will write the client address and port like this, and after that we will need to write a while loop. So while true, we will write the prompt the server operator to enter a command to execute on the client. In this case, the server operator is RV, and so now we will the command here. So command, and we will input some commands here, and we will notify that enter command to execute on client here, and here or type exit or exit to quit here. And after that we will send the command to the client. We will client here client socket dot send and command that encode here. Actually, instead of writing the plural, we can just use the command here instead of commands, and we will here we will check if the server operator wants to exit here. In order to do that, we will just turn the command to lower, because the server operator might write exit like that, or with uppercase E here and then down lowercase xit here, and that's why we will turn it the command to lowercase to check the proper here and exit. That's it. And after that we will break the loop here if this condition occurs here. So now we will need to receive the response from the client. So response here, client socket. We will not use that response here, but for next lectures we will need that here. Decode, we will also need to decode here if there's any response arrived. And after that we need to print the output from the client on the server's terminal. So print here, we will use the format, so output from client command line, and here after that we're gonna use a new line, and after that we will print the response. So here since we completed our application, now we will close the client and server sockets. Client socket dot close here and server socket dot close. That's it. Close here. Now let's actually run current while, and as you can see, it's listening for all incoming connections. So if there's a connections arrived, now we will enter some commands here. In this case it will do nothing because there's a no connection into our machine here. So now I will explain all of the codes here. It will not take a long here. So firstly, we imported the socket. With this code we import the socket model, which provides low-level network functionality. Here, as you remember, we are with this if name equals main, we are checking if the script is being run directly and not imported as a module. And here, as I explained in previous lectures, this hacker server socket variable, we are creating this socket EF inet here to creates a IP version 4, and this creates a TCP socket object for the server, and we are here specifying the IP address to listen on using this 0.0.0.0 means that the server will listen on all available network interfaces. This is the port. We are specifying the port to listen on. You can change this to any available port number. And here we are my socket address. We are here combining the IP address and the port here, IP address variable and port variable into a tuple to bind the socket. And here we are with this code we are binding the socket to specify the IP and port, and here we are enabling the server to listen for incoming client connections. And the 5 parameter that we wrote here specifies that the maximum number of queued connections. And after that we are printing here, and after that we are accepting a client connection when it arrives and returning a new socket object for communication with the client and client's address. And after that as you can see here, we have the command input, so we are printing just here. And so after that we are inside the while loop. With this here, we are prompting the server operator, in this case us, to enter a command to execute on the client. And after that, here, client socket.send command encode here sends the command to the client after encoding into bytes. And after that, if this line of code here checks if the server operator wants to exit, if so, it breaks out of the loop. And here on the response here, we are receiving the response from the client, and the 1024 parameter specifies the maximum number of bytes to receive. And here we are printing the output from the client on the server's terminal. And here we are closing the socket for the client connection, and we are closing the socket for server socket. So this code here covers the server side code explanation. It sets up the server to listen for the client connections, prompts the operator for commands to send to the client, and prints the output received from the client. So in next lecture, we will also develop a client side of the application here. So I'm waiting you in next lecture. Hello, my name is Stefan. Welcome to our remote access Trojan development lecture series. And in previous lecture, we explored the server-side implementation of our remote access Trojan, which allowed us to send commands to a connected client and receive the outputs in the server's terminal. However, we have just a two little errors here, because one of this here in the client socket, I hope you noticed it when we wrote that code in previous lecture. The thing is, we need to firstly receive and decode here, right? So receive 1024, and after that we will need to decode. And here we just forgot here in our keyboard to write the parentheses after the encode here. So that's it, our program will run successful again. So actually in previous lecture our program ran successful, right? Do you remember that? But our program actually, when I did try it, our program got crashed when we tried to connect with the client. So in this lecture we will also develop a client. So in this lecture we will complete our remote access Trojan implementation by developing the client side code, and the client will establish a connection with the server, listen for commands, execute them on the client machine, and send the outputs back to the server. Throughout this lecture, we will dissect the client-side code line by line and understand its functionality here. And we will cover concepts such as socket creations, connecting to the server, receiving commands, executing shell commands using the sub process here, sub process module, and sending the outputs back to the server. So by the end of this lecture, you will have a complete understanding of how remote access Trojan works from both the server and client perspectives, and you will be equipped with the knowledge to build a functional remote access Trojan that allows remote command execution and output retrieval. And remember, this lecture series focuses on educational purposes only, emphasizing responsible and ethical use of such tools. Always ensure you have a proper authorization before conducting any activities related to hacking, penetration testing, or network security. So let's dive into the client-side code and learn how to develop the essential functionalities of our remote access Trojan. Together, we will take another step towards mastering remote access Trojan malware development. And feel free to customize and adapt this script to your lecture style and objectives. And I hope in this lecture you will learn about all the things about client development here. So let's get started. Firstly, we will import the sockets here. So here we will firstly import the socket, and after that we will also import the subprocess. As you remember here, so we will execute commands in the client operating system with the subprocess libraries modules here, and we will also add if name here and here main. And after that, we will define the server IP and port to connect to. In this case, here attacker IP here is going to be 192. Attacker IP is going to be our cal IP address here. So if config here, and you will see this IP address here. Let's actually use this again. So if config and here 138, so we can copy this, or here 168.13.138, and that's it. So after that, we will also need to use the same port, attacker port here. Port, in this case, our attacker port was the 8788. So 8788 here. Also add the 2 dots here. That's it. And here, give name main here, and that's it. So here we got also the problem here because we already did use this, so sometimes let's actually invalidate and restart. Sometimes it might happen like this. Here, that's it. And now what we're gonna do is here, and now what we're gonna do is we will also create a target address. So or here we will do the attacker address here. It's gonna be the server IP. Oops. It's going to be attacker IP and attacker port. And after that, we need to create a socket object for the client. In this case, we will the client socket here. It's going to be socket.socket here. We will use the IP version 4 and socket.af init, socket.sock stream here. And after that, we need to connect to the server. And in order to do that, we will use client socket again, and client socket dot connect, and we will pass the target address as a tuple. Attacker address here. And after that, we will notify to the client. Actually, we don't need to, but for this lecture purposes, we want to see what is going on the client machine. So we will print that here, of course, with the format. Client is connected to, and we will also write the attacker address or attacker IP and attacker port. That's it. And after that, we are done. We need to go to while loop here, while true here, and we need to receive the command from the server. Command. I will explain all of the codes in more detail after writing this. Command here and here. Client socket that receive here, and we will enter the how many bytes we want buffer size, and we will also decode it. And after that, if our client wanna exit, so if the command was to exit from the server, if our command here dot lower is here exit, then it's gonna be exit, we will break the loop and stop the program. That's it. And here, and after that, here outside the if condition, we will need to create the output variable in order to get output from the command. So output here sub process dot get output and command. That's it. So we will get output from that command and client socket dot send. So we will get that output to our server machine, so attacker machine. And here we will output that encode here, and after that we need to close the client socket. So client socket dot close here. Perfect. And we are done with that client remote access Trojan here. So we can open the this here, or we can also run this program to see if everything is okay. Oh, sorry. Here. Python can't open the file main.py because this is not the main.py here. This is, we will need to use the current file, and here our connection is refused because there is no server rat open for right now. So we will run the server rat firstly. Oops. And as you can see, listening for all incoming connections. So whenever we gonna run this on the second terminal, actually, instead of running this from the terminal, let's actually run it on the Windows machine later. But firstly, we will do what we will gonna do here. We will explain all of the codes again. So firstly, with this import socket code, we are importing the socket model, which provides a low-level network functionality. And here with subprocess, we are importing the subprocess module, which allows executing shell commands. And here we are checking if the script is being run directly and not imported as module. So we are defining the IP address of the server to connect to, and you need to change this to the appropriate IP address of yours. And here we also have the attacker port, which is we are specifying the port of the server to connect to, and make sure it matches the port used in the server-side application. And we also have the attacker address. So we are combining the server IP address and port into a tuple, and then we have a client socket variable here, which we are creating a TCP socket object for the client. In this case, the socket AF init is the IP version 4, and sockstream is a TCP here. And we also have the client socket.connect command here, which is we are connecting the client socket to the server, and after that we are printing it. So we are printing a message to indicate that the client is connected to the server, and we are starting an infinite loop for receiving and executing commands from the server. Then we have the command here. We saw client socket receive 1024 and the code here. So with this command, we are receiving the command from the server, and the 1024 parameter specifies the maximum number of bytes to receive. And after that, we have if condition here. So we are checking if the command received is to exit. So if so, we are breaking out of the loop. And we just have 3 lines of code left. The first is the output is we are executing the command using the subprocess get output function. And here we are writing output to this variable here. And here we have a client socket. We are sending the output back to the server after encoding it into bytes. And lastly, we are closing the client socket here. So now let me actually open my Windows CMD here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this program here. And here, as you can see, let's actually make it on the top here and increase the font size. So I copied this client rat here, and now we will run it on our Windows machine here. So here we need to go to Python 3 hacker tools, and we have the client rat.py here. And as you can see here, its size is increased because we write more code compared to previous lectures here. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna touch client here. Oh, sorry, this was a not touch here. I think it was a take for the client rat here. Oh no, I think it was a type to get the read text files. And as you can see here, we have the output here. This is just a code that we wrote. This is the exactly same code that we wrote on the PyCharm here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna run it, right? So Python, so we're gonna run it with a server and see what happens. So Python, our client rat, and as you can see, client is connected to this IP address, and let's see what happened. And as you can see, enter the command to execute, and as you can see, it's not quite looking okay here. So we're gonna change this here to this, and after that we need to new line enter command. That's it. And here it will look more presentable now, and we will run it again, clear, and run it again. And as you can see, we are address already in use, and in order to fix that, we need to terminate the previous process using so in order to terminate that, we need to get an process ID here. Netstat will do that work here for us, and as you can see here, we have a lot of information here, so the process IDs and so on. So but instead, and as you can see here, it's 13 this is the IP address of us. And we can also use different command for terminate or ls off here, ls off here. And as you can see here, so we can also use the you can, in order to fix it, you can also use the different port number for this. And as you can see, it's already fixed, so it might take some 5 or 10 seconds to restart and close the network. Your network driver here will close that connection automatically if it's not working here. And as you can see, we're listening for all incoming client connections. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our Windows machine, and here, and as you can see here, whenever we entered, client is connected to this here. So now we need to enter a command. In this case, let's actually use a dir here, and as you can see here, we got the exactly same output here. So volume in drive C has a no label here, right? And we can also use the widget to download some files from the internet here. Let's actually try that. So in order to do that, we will use the curl here. So now we will go to open our browser, and we will go to some website to find some image, or we can also we can download the entire like applications and so on. So go here, but in this case, let's actually use that here. Let's actually download the Kali here, or let's go to DuckDuckGo. You have been hacked here, and now we will go to images, and that's it. So we can choose some of the, so you have been hacked, so we can download this here. So we will copy the link, and here this is, as you can see, this is the link. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna write the curl command. So curl our website here, and O here with uppercase O. We will use the hack.jpg here, and as you can see here, it's downloaded now. Now let's use a dir again, and here we got an error here because the broken pipe. So we will run our program again on the, and here, as you can see, let's see what happened. I will run this again. So here we have this. Oops. Let's clear that. And here we're gonna go to here again, and let's open the server up, and as you can see here, it's giving us error again. And I want to also show you how to change the port number of it. And here we can change the port number, for example 19,900 here, and we also need to change it on the client side 19,900. So 19,900 here, is it same? Yes. So you can change the ports, but you need the exact same ports to if you want your program work. So here in this lecture we covered the client side code explanation, and it establishes a connection with the server, receives command from the server, and executes them using the sub process get output and sends the output back to the server. So remember to customize the server IP address and port to match your server's details.